Hi everyone, and welcome to the Syncretism Society Virtual Academy with myself, Mehmet. And today's lesson is lesson 2 in learning the basics of astrology. If you already haven't checked out lesson 1, I suggest you do so because I think it will give you a good foundation on how energy works. Because the name of that lesson was learning the basics of energy, where we talked about electricity and the physical world and redshift and blue shift energy and how that comes from the spiritual world of dielectricity and magnetism. And we also touched up on the torus field and the atom. So if you haven't checked that out, I suggest you do so, and because it will give you a bit of a foundation on what I'm talking about today. In today's lesson, I want to touch up on the sine wave and what a sine wave is and how a sine wave works. And also, before we get into the meaning of like each sign and which planet it's ruled by and the more specific details, I want to explain to you that there are 4 different types of elements and there are 3 different qualities. So each element has a sign in 3 different qualities. And what I want to do is give you a basic understanding of the elements and the qualities before we get into the planets and how which planets rule which sign and get a bit more in depth. Because although you can have, for example, 2 signs which are of the same element, like I'll just give you a quick example, like Aries and Leo are both fire signs, but one is a fixed sign and one is a cardinal sign. So they're 2 different types of fire. So what I want to explain is what cardinal, fixed, and mutable is, which is the mode of the element. And I also want to explain what each element is as well. But before I get into that, one thing that we want to make clear on the Syncretism Society is that all of our teachings are based on a geocentric Earth. We do not promote the heliocentric system. And what I want to do is read something from this book, which is called The Practical Astrologer. Anyone starting up astrology, this is a really cool book, actually. And I'd suggest you check it out. It has everything about astrology, from cell sorts to the planets, to the signs, to the different types of astrology. Yeah, it's a very, very good book. I found it in a charity shop, actually, and I was so blessed, and I've learned a lot from it. And there's an interesting paragraph that I want to read on here before I get into talking about what a sine wave is, what the elements are, and what the 3 modalities are. So yeah, like I mentioned before, astrology has always been a geocentric science, but obviously since like the last 400 or 500 years, Copernicus kind of give us a new concept of how the universe works, which is heliocentric. But what's good about this book is that it talks about both, and it talks about the differences between astrology and astronomy. And I'm just going to read a little paragraph before I get into my slides. So here it says, astrology and astronomy. Astrology and astronomy were once interchangeable terms used to describe the study of the stars. Since the scientific revolution of the 17th century, they have been firmly separated and now have a quite distinct meanings. Astronomy is concerned solely with the physical study of the universe, while astrology gives a symbolic meaning to the patterns and phenomena of that universe. There is an overlap between the 2 disciplines, because at their most basic level, both concern the physical effects which the planets, especially the sun and the moon, have upon the Earth. In every other respect, they are quite separate. Astronomy shows that the Earth and planets pursue a spiraling path through space, following the sun as it hurtles around the galaxy. Astrology uses a more static and symbolic model in which the Earth remains motionless at the center while the planets and the sun orbit around it. This is known as the Earth-centered geocentric system, as opposed to the sun-centered geocentric system. So like I said, In the Syncretism Society, we do not teach the heliocentric system. All of our work is based on the geocentric system. I'll read you another little paragraph and then I'll get into my slides. The subtitle of this is called the Geocentric Framework. It says, astrologers use a system of great circles to define the structure and mathematical divisions of a horoscope. A great circle is a circle around the Earth's surface whose plane passes through the center of the Earth. A detailed study of these circles is outside of the scope of this book and is only the basic great circles that need to be understood. The equator is the imaginary line, i.e. the specific great circle around the Earth which separates the northern hemisphere from the southern hemisphere. It is known as the terrestrial equator in order to distinguish it from the celestial equator. Its projection in space is the ecliptic, which is the name for the sun's path through the sky on its annual cycle. As a result of the Earth's tilt let me read that again. It says, as a result of the tilt in the Earth's axis, the ecliptic intersects the celestial equator at an angle of nearly 23.5 degrees. Well, to correct that, actually, it is not actually the Earth that is tilting to make the seasons, it's the path of the sun. The sun travels in a vortex, like in a cone. It's got a bigger circle at the bottom, and as it goes up, it gets smaller. So this creates a ramp that the sun is going up, which is actually what is creating the season. It's not a tilt of the Earth. All they've done in the heliocentric model is they've took this vortexial shape and just applied it to the Earth so the seasons can work. So it's just an inverse. So what he says here about the Earth's tilt, it's not actually the Earth's tilt. It's actually the sun's path going in a vortex shape. It says once a year, the sun reaches its maximum extension southwards, and once a year, it reaches its maximum extension northward. And twice a year, it reaches overhead at the equator. These four positions are known as the cardinal points. They define the four seasons and represent the key stones of the astrological year. They are of tremendous symbolic importance in the horoscope. So yeah, like I said, that's what we're going to go into now, is like learning the sine wave, the four elements, and the three modalities, which one of them is cardinal and the other two are fixed and mutable. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and we'll get into that and do some more reading. So if you just bear with me for a minute, I'll just share my screen. So I already have everything set up. So yeah, like I mentioned, we're going to learn what a sine wave is and how it works and how this fits in with astrology. So what is a sine wave? A sine wave is a geometric waveform that oscillates, moves up and down and side to side periodically and is defined by the function y equals sin x. In other words, it is an S-shaped smooth wave that oscillates above and below zero. So yeah, as you can see here, the 0 point is this middle point here, and it goes up and down, up and down. So in basic terms, the half of the wave that is on top would symbolize the sun during the day. So this would be the sun rising, and then this would be the sun setting, and then this would be the sun below the horizon. So it would be nighttime. And then obviously, as the sun rises again, it makes the same wave, and this wave is just continuous. But also this can be a polarity for like many different things. So it could be like morning, night, summer, winter, male, female, hot, cold, etc., etc. So moving on as well, there are two different ways to view the sine wave. It can be viewed as a wave, and it can also be viewed as like a circular disc. And this, obviously, we know all circles are 360 degrees, and this circle is split into 12 degrees of 30. Let me repeat that. This circle is split into 12 sections of 30 degrees each, which makes up the 12 signs of the zodiac. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And also here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So these are both the same thing, but they're just viewed in different ways. There's no right and wrong. They're both correct. And here, yeah, so here it shows where 30 degrees would be on the sign, and here it shows where 30 degrees would be on the wheel. Yeah, and this is just a picture of, if you take a picture of the sun every hour and then you put them all together, you can see it creates a sine wave. So this happens obviously every day, and also this wave symbolizes the whole year as well, which I'll show you as we go further. So before we get into this, what I want to do is I just want to minimize this, and actually what I'll do, I just want to go back to a slide, and then it will give you a bit more clarity to what I'm going to show you. In the last episode of the Basics of Astrology, I explained that the sun goes in this section here, which is from the Tropic of Cancer to the equator to the Tropic of Capricorn, and then from the Tropic of Capricorn back to the equator, and then it just keeps going up, down, up, down, up, down. And this is what creates a season. So when the sun is up here, it's summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere, and vice versa. When the sun is down here, it's summer in the southern hemisphere and winter in the northern hemisphere. And like I said, the sun is traveling along every day, but obviously it's going up and down throughout the year. So it goes up for half the time and down for half the time. So the reason why I'm showing you that is because I want to now show you how this concept works and how it relates to the sine wave. So if I just minimize my screen and then I show you this, you can see it would be a representation of the sun. And when you can see this vibration going up and down, it creates a sine wave. And this is exactly showing the sun's path of how it works during the day, of when it rises and sets, and just showing summer and winter, or hot and cold, or day and night. So let me go back to my other slideshow where we'll carry on. So let me make this bigger. So yeah, like I said, all energy works in a sine wave. So now what we can do, and what I showed you earlier, I showed you that a sine wave or a circle is split into 12 sections of 30 degrees. So those 12 sections are what we know as the 12 signs of the zodiac. So obviously here we have Aries here, which is the first sign, and Pisces here, which is the last sign. So we've got Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. So just to give you the basics, so each season has 3 signs. So we have 4 seasons and 3 signs in each season. So this first section would be spring, this next section would be summer, the next section would be autumn, and the next section would be winter. But also you can correlate this to a date, like in a more like a smaller fractal, you could correlate this to the days cycle as well. So spring would correlate with summer. No, let me repeat that. I beg my pardon. Spring would correlate with the morning. Summer correlates with the afternoon. Autumn correlates with the evening, and winter correlates with the nighttime. Again, this is just another sine wave graphic showing you each sign and where it starts. And like this middle line, the 0 point on the sine wave correlates with the equator on the Earth. And this is also the horizon, because this line symbolizes the horizon, because once the sun comes up here, this is when you can see it. So this would be sunrise, this would be noon, and then the sun starts setting, and then once it gets to like 6 a.m. Yeah, also another thing I forgot to mention, each one of these sections symbolizes 2 hours of the day. So this would be 6 to 8 a.m. This would be 8 to 10 a.m. This would be 10 to 12 p.m. This would be 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. This will be 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And this will be 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then from here, you have the evening. So you have 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. And then you've got 12 a.m. to 2 a.m. and then 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. and then 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then the cycle starts again. So like I showed you earlier in the little GIF graphic, this can also work in a circle. So here it would be spring, summer, autumn, winter, or morning, afternoon, evening, night. So moving on now, I want to talk a bit about the elements. If you watched a previous video I did on the Platonic solids, you will have a bit of background on the elements and what they represent, but that was more in relation to the Platonic solids, which are the same anyway, they syncretize. But what I want to teach you is that there are 4 elements in astrology, which is fire, earth, air, and water. And that is the order that they go in the wheel of the zodiac. So it starts off with fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. And it just continually uses that cycle. And the reason why it's in that particular order, because it goes from the least dense, which is fire, to the most dense, which is earth, and then it goes to the next least dense, which is air, to the most least, to the one, well, obviously the most dense is earth, and then after that is water. So it goes fire, earth, air, water, and just keeps going around. So what I'm going to do, let me just move this to the side so you can see the writing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some basics of what each element is and which signs they relate to, and this slide is just some bullet points, but then in the next slide I'm going to do it's a little paragraph for each element. So the element of fire relates to the signs of Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And the main bullet points for the fire element is they have stronger emotions, enthusiastic, passionate, temperamental, they're achievers, and interesting. The water signs are Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And they are refreshing, charming, mysterious, private, sensitive, and emotional. The earth element are the signs of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, and they are dependable, grounded, reliable, materialistic, loyal, and practical. And finally, the air signs are Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra, and they are powerful, creativity, fun. They have ideas, they're adventurous, and they're exciting. So someone watching who knows that they are of a particular sign, they might find it interesting, or it might make sense to them why they can relate to these certain bullet points for each element. Because it's very important to understand the elements, because it is a big part of how our psyche functions, if that makes sense. But what you also need to understand is that astrology is not just based on your sun sign. There are 9 other planets. So, but giving you an example, myself, I'm a Scorpio. Well, my sun was in Scorpio when I was born, which would make me a water sign, which is to do with emotions. But I also have 5 of the planets in fire signs in my chart. So I also have a lot of fire energy within my chart. So one thing that people mustn't get confused about is just because you're a water sign, it doesn't mean that you'll be all emotional. You have to check which planets are in which signs, and then that gives you a constitution of how much of each element you have in yourself. Like for me, for example, I have 40% fire, 20% water, 20% air, and 10% earth. So in relation to me, I would need to work on my earth element, because maybe not having so much earth would make me not so grounded as other people who have more earth element in their chart. But we can talk about that once we get into looking at birth charts, but I'm just giving you a quick example. So moving on, what I'll do, I'm just going to expand this and then I'll read about each element. So earth signs, with its natural connection to the material world, the earth sign is governed by the values of practicality and austerity. People born under these signs are very cautious individuals, especially in business and financial matter. They are primarily concerned with the real and as such are very down-to-earth individual. The star signs governed by the earth element are Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo. So moving on, air signs. Communication is the forte of people born under the air sign. Brilliant and witty, they can be stars in their own right, with the natural abilities to socialize and stand out from the crowd. Their intelligence gives them an unnatural capability to conceptualize, and their sense of freedom makes them spontaneous and unpredictable on the one hand, a very mysterious and eccentric on the other. The star signs governed by the air element are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. So moving on to fire signs. People born under the fire sign are very driven individuals that possess the need to express themselves. Faith and enthusiasm are the driving forces behind these individuals. As with the fire, they can go from a small flicker to a raging flame, making them very temperamental. If they are managed properly, however, they can be passionate in whatever endeavor they decide to engage. The star signs governed by the fire element are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Water signs. The element of sensitivity. People born under the water signs are known to be in touch with their emotions and those of others. As such, they possess a higher sense of empathy, making them the ideal social creatures. They can be very emotional and complex. They are easily hurt when their sacrifices are not acknowledged by others. The star signs governed by the water element are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So that was just a quick brief introduction into the basics of what the four elements are. But what we need to understand is, although there are four elements, there are 12 signs. So the way it works is that each element has 3 signs. So the 3 fire signs, like mentioned before, are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. But although they're all fire signs, they're in 3, we have what is called a modality. So we have fire in its beginning stage, fire in its middle stage, and fire in its end stage. So at its beginning stage, it's called cardinal. In the middle stage, it's called fixed. And in the end stage, it's called mutable. So the cardinal signs are Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer. Another thing to mention, I will read about this as well, but I'll just mention it now. Cardinal signs are the first signs of each season. So Aries is the first sign of spring. Cancer is the first sign of summer. Libra is the first sign of autumn. And Capricorn is the first sign of winter. Then the fixed signs are Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, Scorpio. And then the mutable signs are Sagittarius, Virgo, and Gemini. But as I said, as I go through the slides, this will become more clear. So yeah, so like I mentioned before, each season has 3 signs Yeah, so yeah, it has three signs and three modes. So you've got cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So spring starts with cardinal fire, and then the next one after that is fixed earth, and then the next one after that is mutable air. Then you can see after that comes cardinal again, but obviously there's different elements as well. So there's three different types of each element, and they're the three modes. So that also plays a difference. So, for example, just because Aries and Leo and Sagittarius are all fire signs, they will be similar in some way, but they'll also be different because they're different modes of fire. One is at the beginning stage, one is at the middle stage, and one is at the end stage. So what I'm going to do now is go on to reading about each mode, which is cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So first of all, we're going to read about cardinal. The cardinal zodiac signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. When something is described as cardinal, it signifies that it is both fundamental and important, and that's certainly the case when it comes to the four cardinal signs of the zodiac. Cardinal signs are the initiators of the zodiac. They represent a spark or idea. They also signify the beginning of the season. Cardinal signs are the zodiac's big ideas people. You can always count on them to get fresh energy flowing, launch new projects off the ground, and to build a solid foundation for any endeavor, although they sometimes struggle to complete everything they start. The cardinal signs are very visionary. They are also able to create new things seemingly out of thin air and charge forward on new beginnings. That all said, it makes sense that the first day of each cardinal astrological season coincides with the first day of each meteorological season. Aries season aligns with the spring equinox, and Libra season aligns with the autumn equinox, while Cancer and Capricorn seasons begin on the summer and winter solstices, respectively. The fresh start cardinal sign energy helps us kick off each season with gusto. So now moving on to the fixed signs, excuse me. Fixed zodiac signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. The fixed signs of the zodiac have their eyes on the prize. These signs are always able to capitalize on the cardinal signs' ideas and make them into reality by following through on the plans. Fixed signs are the doers of the zodiac. They carry out the ideas manifested by the cardinal signs and do all the work needed to complete the task at hand. For each fixed sign, are laser focused when they set a goal. Great to stick into a plan and have a knack for identifying exactly what needs to be done and then doing it. This can make them quite stubborn sometimes, but their hardworking nature outshines that. Because the astrological season for each of these signs falls right smack in the middle of spring, summer, autumn, and winter, the energy of the fixed sign is focused on momentum and dedication. Fixed signs' strengths come out when they are in the thick of something and are fully submerged, and they can be relied upon to push through the toughest parts of any situation with steadfast dedication. And finally, the mutable signs of the zodiac. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Cardinal signs get things started, while fixed signs follow through on the plans. Then finally, mutable signs of the zodiac swoop into complete things and help us embrace life's inevitable changes. Mutable signs represent the end of each season and the finality of a project or task at hand. They are flexible due to their understanding of change. Things don't always go according to plan, but mutable signs can be unexpected shifts. Their changeability and adaptability shines when faced with endings, challenges, or shifts, as they can gracefully change course and go with the flow. This can sometimes make them a little whimsical or hard to pin down, but mutable signs have the power to roll with and make the most of just about any situation. The astrological season for the mutable zodiac sign takes place during the final month of each spring, summer, autumn, and winter, respectively, meaning that the sun leaves each of these signs every year. Every year, a whole season ends too. That energy is fully reflected in the mutable sign's adaptable ability to accept things as they are and shape shift to accommodate the circumstances. Whether it's a project, a conversation, or a whole season, these signs know how to bring things to a natural conclusion. So yeah, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So yeah, that was just a basic on learning about the elements and which three modes the elements operates in. So what I want to do in the next lesson is what I'll do is I'll get my board and I'll do some diagrams and we can refresh that, and then we can go into learning about which planets rule each sign. And also I want to have a series where I'll do a brief introduction into what each sign is about. So I hope you enjoyed the show, guys. And yeah, I look forward to lesson 3 of the basics of astrology. Peace, love, and blessings. I'm out.